I love shooting cinematic sequences for my videos because they make them look so much better and interesting, but I hate setting up the scene because it always takes so much time to set up all the big lights, etc. and all of that just to capture a few seconds of footage. It really feels like it's not worth it. And that's why everything that makes this process a bit quicker and easier is very welcome, and one of the biggest factors there are lights, which just got better with the new lights from Zhiyun, the FR100 and the M40 lights. Now, special about these lights is that they are a lot brighter than other lights. The FR100 is 100 watts, which is actually a lot. You see this light here in the corner? This is a 60 watt light, so a big difference. And they also have the M40s, which have 40 watts. And that's usually the big issue with small lights like that. If they are too dark, it's just not enough to light up your subject well. And especially if you add diffusion filters and so on, that reduces the light even more. So then it's usually not enough anymore to light your subject. So a few days ago, I shot a sequence for the Nisi filters here in my room using only these 3 lights and 2 practical lights here from my room. So I would say let's have a look what they can do. So I want to shoot the intro sequence now for the new Swift V&D Mist Kit from Nisi, and the story will basically be that I come home after a day of shooting, I review my footage on the sofa, and then I recognized that my shutter speed was just way too high. I just don't like the footage then. And so to set up the scene here, I want to start with the lighting, and my idea is that when we come home in the evening, I have this table light here on and I have this light on. So it should kind of act as my key lights, but they can't, of course, because you see here with a lamp like that, you would never use it as a key light. It would come out bad. And that is why I will use the new Zhiyun FR100 light here. And now I have to trick here a little bit. I have my practical light, the table lamp here, but I will have my key light here, and because the light is coming from a similar direction, I will match the color of the light a bit. Then it actually gives the impression that the light in the scene would come from this light, even if it doesn't. So let's do that quickly here. I also use this light here as a headlight, that I get a bit of a rim light effect on top of my head. I'll also enhance it a little bit later, but usually only having a practical light like that is already enough. So let's close the curtain. Now I want to bring another hair light in the shot. As you can see, simple setup, just a normal tripod with this overhead rig here. Thanks Roma for that, by the way, he gave it to me. Because it's not that heavy, you can easily put this M40 light from Zhiyun here on top. And now it's time for a first check if I like the shot. One problem is that we have the sun outside. It is daylight, but you want to have the illusion of night. So we have to put something in front of the curtain. You have to stay a child if you want to be a filmmaker. Yeah, it's staying tight. It's the perfect way to make the neighbors think you're weird, and you probably are. But now this side of my face is a bit too dark, which is why I want to use a fill light, but I don't want to do too much with it. I also use an ML40 here. I don't want it to look like a light. I still want to have this shadow effect here on my face. I just want to ensure that I can see a little bit of detail. Like right now you see the shadow side of my face is pretty dark. There's a bit of detail in there, but it doesn't really look good. So now you can see a bit more detail here on my face, but it doesn't really look like that there is another light on my face. And that's exactly the effect that I want to go for here. There's too much light on the wall. I don't like that. Okay, finally figured it out. It was not enough to put the light on the table, and the light was a bit too high and too far away from my face, which is why we're using another tripod now. So it definitely makes sense to have a few more tripods at home. But now you see we have this light here, then we have this light that is kind of an enhancement of this light. It should look like the light is coming from there, but it actually doesn't. This is very close to my face and acts as a key light. Then we have one hair light here, we have another hair light. I moved that a bit forward away from the wall, because otherwise we have too much light on the wall and I don't really like that. And now we have a really nice separation here from the wall, as far as I can tell on my camera. So I would say it's time to shoot this scene now. I want to set the focus first. Daniel, can you press AFL? I looked in the camera. Okay, next shot over the shoulder. That's a bit tricky here. This is actually a great example for a usable practical light. I extra bought that for my YouTube studio. So you can see I can change the brightness. Now it's pretty bright. Now it's medium. and now it's a bit darker. You find these lights in all furniture stores. Sometimes maybe if you already know what brightness you need, you can also just save some money by directly buying a light that is a bit darker, but that helps a lot. Sometimes you want to have a bit of light, but it shouldn't be too bright. Then being able to adjust the light helps a lot. So now I want to capture a bit of B-roll footage here from the filters as well. And for that I will only use the M40 lights here because, well, they're super small. I can move them around over the table, that's great. And it's quick and easy to set up. You don't necessarily need a super big softbox or even an FR100 to get product B-roll shots. Oftentimes such small lights are fine for that. And I want to capture all of those B-roll shots at 120 frames per second in 4K. That means that I have to have my shutter speed at 240s of a second. And that means that I need a lot of light, because otherwise the image will be too dark, especially because I'm going for a 2.8 aperture here. Would be a bit better to go for a 1.8 or 1.4 or something, but that's from the focal length the best lens that I have for those product B-roll shots here right now. So this is actually why these ML40 lights are really good, because they have 40 watts. Yeah, I'm overexposed right now, so you see how bright these lights are. That's why I love 120p. You can just get the shot straight out of your hand. Foop. It's just easy to get and quick. I'm not recording in 120p now, but I want to have a higher aperture because I'm so close here and focus on 70mm on APS-C, so 105mm on full frame. And that means that at f2.8 aperture or even f4 or so, the depth of field would be way too shallow, so you wouldn't be able to see the whole filter and all the details. That's why right now I use f10 for that. So I think that was a good example for what you can do with such small lights. I'm actually really fascinated about it. And let's also talk a bit more about the specific features of this light. I reviewed the FR100C a few months ago, and now you might have the question, what is the difference between those lights? I would say the biggest difference is here the barn doors, because that makes the light a bit more directional, so you have more control of the light. And what comes with this barn doors is also the feature that you can use a softbox on top, and you can use this grid here as well, and that makes your light even more directional and it looks better on your subject, because if the light is very harsh it looks unnatural, but if you have soft light on your subject that always looks a bit better. That's why this diffuser is so important. And while shooting the sequence I just noticed why it is actually so important to have these 100 watts, because if you want to soften the light with the softbox and the grid, that reduces the light so much that you need to have a very strong input, because otherwise it's just not enough light on your subject anymore. So if you want to use that in conjunction, you really have to set the light to 100 watts. And that leads us to the next advantage over the FR100C, which is 100 watts PD charging. You can only use your MacBook charger to charge the batteries at 100 watts super fast, or to power the light indefinitely while using it at maximum brightness. But if you power the light via USB-C, you can only power it, but it doesn't charge at the same time, at least if you use it at maximum brightness, 100 watts. If you want to charge and power it at the same time, you need an adapter that's sold separately, but I would actually say you don't need that adapter. I mean, why would you charge the battery if you can power it only with your MacBook charger indefinitely? I think you can save some money there. And I would say, let's change the lights now. Let's turn my key light here off and only use the FIVERAY FR100 to film the next part of the video about the M40 lights. So let's change that. Okay, you can probably see the difference. I only use the FR100 now as my key light, and from what I see on the display here from my camera, it looks pretty good. I would still say, of course, that the 90cm softbox even close to my face then looks still a bit better. It makes it even softer, but I would argue that the FR100 is perfectly usable for a setup like that. It looks pretty good, and considering the size difference, it is especially good for small studios. You don't need a super big softbox like I have to get a good looking shot. Okay, let's also talk about the M40 lights here, and I would say they are a bit less special as the FR100, but they have 40 watts of brightness, which is a lot, and they actually also need fans here at the back because otherwise they would overheat. Aside from that, you can change the light temperature here. It's not an RGB light, you can't make blue light or purple or whatever you want. You can change it from 2700 Kelvin to 6200 Kelvin. I would say for all normal scenarios that's enough. And what I like about these lights is that you can mount them easily everywhere. Like this mount here is rotatable, and here is 1/4 inch screw and there's another one. So you can mount it on a tripod like that, or you could alternatively mount it here and place it however you want. And because these lights are pretty light at 320 gram, you can also just use a general tripod together with a boom arm or something to place it above your subject as a hairlight, for example. That's what I did before. So I think these lights are also really usable for even quicker setups. And for example, if you're on the go, maybe you want to shoot in a cafe or so and you just want to make one side of your face a bit brighter while sitting close to a window or so, then I think these are really good lights, because there you also need a bit more brightness as similar lights would give you. And the ML40 also features a USB-C port that you can use for PD fast charging at 50 watts, so also with a MacBook charger, even from a MacBook Air in that case. And the nice thing here is that at 50 watts you can both charge and use these lights at the same time. That makes them even more usable for shooting on the go. So I can only say that I think Zhiyun did a great job with those lights. I mean, cramming that much power in such a small form factor is complicated, and to be honest, I could not find any negatives about this light. I must say I only used those lights for a very short time now, so this is not a long-term review, but for now I can only say there are no negatives from what I've seen, and these are really good lights that you can use especially for smaller rooms. And if you want to have some more ideas on what you can do with the FR100 light, especially when you travel as your key light, then check out this video here in the corner. There I reviewed the FR100C and give you some tips, and everything that counts for the FR100C also counts for the FR100. It just got better. So I hope to see you in this video, and aside from that, if you enjoyed this one, consider subscribing and leave me a like. See ya!